This is a hip internal rotation stretch in a bear sit position. So you can see that my knees are in a little bit of hip flexion, or my hips are in a little bit of hip flexion, my knees are bent, and I'm up against a wall. If you feel any sort of pinching in this position and you cannot change it with the alteration of your pelvis or the position of your legs, you may need to regress to a different position. So keep in mind as we move forward, I'm going to show you how to get into the position, what you should feel and where, and then we're gonna progress into how to do the PAILs rails for this video. So to start, we are going to find a position. The exact position or distance apart that your legs are isn't super important. It's gonna be slightly different from everybody. So if you're here versus if you're a little more out, just gonna stress different lines of tissue. So find what feels comfortable. And again, we're trying to avoid any groin closing angle symptoms in the groin here. So once you're in that position, if we are going to do a right-sided hip internal rotation stretch, I'm gonna think about letting my knee fall into the ground here, but I'm gonna keep my sit bone heavy on the ground. So I'm really thinking about rotating that thigh in. So we are getting some winding. So we're really targeting the internal rotation that we need to, which is gonna be targeting the deep hip capsule. From here, you're gonna hold that stretch for about 2 minutes. We should be feeling a nice outside glute deep stretch the entire time, trying to just breathe through it. We're not trying to push into a super high intensity. This should not be super upregulating. Once the 2 minutes is up, we're gonna start with PAILs rails. For PAILs, we're going to start contracting the stuff that is stretching, which is gonna be this outer stuff here. So we are going to move or think about moving into hip external rotation. That's just thinking about your ankle driving into the ground and your knee coming out so that we get some external rotation at the hip. We are thinking about the thigh rotating outwards. So you're gonna take your hand and place it on the outside of your knee so that we don't have any movement. That is the I in PAILs, and rails is isometrics, which means no movement. So you're going to slowly contract into your hand. You're gonna ramp that up to the desired intensity. Then we're gonna hold for about 20 to 30 seconds or the prescribed amount of time. Once that is done, you ramp it back down. From there, we're gonna contract into rails, which is going to be the stuff that would pull you into a deeper stretch. For the purposes of this stretch specifically, you are going to think now about rotating your ankle out and letting your knee sink in and really keeping that glute, that sit bone heavy on the ground and feeling like your thigh is rotating in more. If you aren't familiar with that movement, you can practice it here and think about rotating your ankle out, knee in, and then you're gonna contract those muscles. There's not going to be a lot of movement, but you should feel some of the front of your hip contract. Again, we are always trying to avoid closing angle pain in the front of your hip in that groin area, so don't push into that. And you can always alter how bent your knee is to try to avoid it. We can alter some of the tilting of our pelvis a little to try to avoid it. And we can also alter which direction our leg is. So play around with those positions. If none of them work and you still have closing angle pain, obviously this is not a good position for you and you want to find a different one.